Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrew, and I'm going to be starting a project in which I read/reread and review almost every single book that has achieved 1 million or more ratings on Goodreads. Now, there are a few books that already fall in this category that I have already reviewed, and I'm unsure if I will reread those or not, but I also I do want to reread some just to kind of have like commentary on if my opinions have changed or not. And I also will only be reading the first books in series if, there's multiple books within the same series, which for the purposes of this video, there are several. I actually have created a whole spreadsheet, and I kind of want to just start off with some statistics from the spreadsheet of what I have gathered. I'm so sorry, I can't see, but I think I'm just going to put screenshots up on the board here. These are the things, this is the information that I thought would be interesting. Of course, I have the title and the author, and then I have what genre it's in. Then I have the age range, like whether it was middle grade, young adult, or adult. And then I have what year it was published. And then I have, of course, how many ratings. I haven't fully input. I was going to put in my excitement level. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to do anything with that. And then I also did if the book has been adapted into a film or TV show, which, surprising no one, a lot of them have. And then, of course, I was also curious how many of these books that have over 1 million ratings are written by a person of color or by someone LGBT. Not surprising, the answer is not very many. In fact, let's just start there. Let's talk about how many of these. It's only 195 books out of the whole world of publishing, and I'm not doing a project where I read like one of these every day, or I'm not giving a time frame on how long this will be done, but I am going to make a playlist and put any of the books that fall. I'll probably have my old videos and my new videos, and you can kind of see how those have changed, if they have changed. But as far as books written by a person of color, I believe we have 6. If I'm wrong, I'll put it in editing somewhere, but I believe we have 6. Out of 195, which is not that many. Sad, really. And then how many of these books am I aware of? Even if we were to just say how many of these books have LGBT characters, the list would be short. But if we then expand to say how many are LGBT authors and they are out, like those authors are actually out, which is a whole other concern. Obviously, like, people cannot just come out no matter their circumstances and all that. But as far as I'm aware, if there are, from what I know off the top of my head, I'm only seeing 2 authors that I believe are LGBT of any kind, which is honestly surprised. I thought it would be similar how few LGBT characters. I know there are some of these books written by authors that I'm not sure, but I know that they do have LGBT characters, and if we were to do that, it'd probably be like at least 5. But again, we have the issue of like publishing only seeming to be concerned with, like, they're not focused on getting an LGBT author to write an LGBT story, or even a person of color to write a person of color story, because one of the popular books on this list that I do still intend to read and review, because I think it's important that we discuss where we were at a certain time, is The Help, which I remember, when I was younger, like, I remember seeing that movie and not knowing anything about how the book came about. I mean, I'm probably going to do a lot of research into a lot of these things, but that's just some interesting factors. So we've got like 6 or 7 person of color authors. We've got two LGBT authors, which is, I believe, 1% of the representation of books here. I was also curious, like, how many of these are like after 2000, because I feel like after the year 2000, a lot of fiction became incredibly, it just, like, I think that my generation is a big reader generation due to what was coming out at that time. So I'm curious how much of it is now. how much of it is you had to read it for school, so like you already knew how you felt about the book, maybe you read it at school, went to update it later, now the book has, 5 million ratings. But as far as before 2000 versus after 2000, I think that would be an interesting way to just... So there are 68 books before the year 2000, which would mean there's 127 after the year 2000. Now, I'm also wondering, like, I'm thinking about this project and I'm thinking, what if a book that is currently close to 1 million hits 1 million? And I guess it'll just depend on how interested I am in that book. It will depend on, mostly that, I guess. So those are just some interesting statistics. Now, if you guys want to guess how many of these have been adapted, I put sort of on here, as in there are some books that have sort of been adapted, as in they weren't necessarily like a movie or a show, but like maybe there was like a YouTube short or a YouTube video that kind of did it, or it became a play. So those are in the sort of category. So if we exclusively look at books that are not currently adapted, we've got... So 74 of these books have not been adapted in the traditional sense, if you will, which is actually more than I would have guessed. I would have thought that it was like, it is over 50% that have been adapted, and I'm sure that's a huge factor in the success of the book sales, all that. But that's interesting to me. I would have thought that it would be a smaller number of books that haven't been adapted. Of course, if we remove the sort of category, then we've only got 65 books that have not been adapted. So even these like mini adaptations are still affecting the sales or the promotion of the book, or contributing to its success in some way, it would appear. Now, the author with the most entries, I would be surprised if you didn't know. There is one author that has, I believe, the second most entries that I'm not discussing that author whatsoever. But if you are familiar with the early 2000s and what was popular and what was causing, reading to... I'm sure you can guess. But Sarah J. Maas has 10 spots. 10 spots on this list are taken up by Sarah J. Maas. And I'm not going to say that is a positive or negative thing. And I'm definitely not going to say that readers are the issue for that or the cause for that. I think publishing and marketing and where they are choosing to spend their money and what they are choosing to promote is a huge factor in what is popular. Marketing is clearly an incredibly valuable tool when it comes to book sales. Now, I also find it interesting because I made a video of my top 10 favorite authors a few months ago, and I was curious, like, how many of those authors are in the spreadsheet? Like, how much of a basic bitch am I? And there are 5 authors from my favorites list that are also in this list, and therefore I have purchased their books, read their books, promoted their books, and they clearly don't need me. They are doing just fine. Now, Sarah J. Maas is not on that list. I do have my most popular video on my channel is a review for Court of Thorns and Roses. And I hate this fact. However, I want people to find my channel. So it is a double-edged sword, if you will. I barely reviewed that book, barely said anything about the book. It was not a good review. It was not an in-depth review. It was not a critical analysis of the book. I barely discussed the book at all. And yet it is my most popular video, as people just know that name. People just know the book and they just search it on YouTube, I guess. Like, I just find that interesting. There's some authors on here there's a lack of some authors on here just based off my perceptions of what I've seen online. Like, there's no Brandon Sanderson. Who is just such... I do think that he will be on here in a few years, because I believe as of right now, the first book in the Mistborn series has like 800,000 ratings, so like it'll just be a few years, and I'm sure he'll be up there. But it is interesting to me, just like the perspective of what I've seen online or what I view online, and my perceptions of popularity based off of what I see on BookTube. Brandon, I'm trying to think who else. Like, I R.F. Kuang, I think maybe she eventually could get up there with, I think she's incredibly talented. I'm not trying to give away my whole favorite authors list, but she's in there. She's second or third, I think. I just think that this is going to be a fun project, regardless of what I personally view of the books. I think it's important to look at what publishing is promoting, why they're promoting it, and then I think it could be valuable. I think that some of my favorite books could be found from this list easily. I think that a lot of things become popular. Hopefully things become popular because they're very good. There's an argument, I believe, kind of going around of like, oh, this is just palatable and easy for the masses to consume. And I do think that maybe there's truth in that, but I also don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing, because if something is easy to read, easy to get into, you would hope that people pick up that book, whatever it is, and then they kind of are like hungry for more. I don't really think that there are any authors that you should be upset at people reading. You should be upset if people pick up that author and like never read anything else. I think that's what we should be upset about. I'm thinking of a video, I think I posted it on my community tab, of Bookborn. Like, I think she did such a good job describing this mentality about reading and people getting into reading and the books that they're using to get into reading. And I guess we just have to kind of figure out as a society, like, how can we get people to read those easy books and then continue to think critically? Because I know plenty of people who have picked up, I don't want to put one specific author, but like, people will pick up like contemporary books that are very gut-wrenching and emotional, and they will enjoy reading. And there's nothing to stop that person from continuing to read and eventually pick up a classic. I think there's like this knee-jerk reaction to have some sort of insult towards people. Again, I think the insult just not an insult. I think it's valid to say to someone, like, if you are only reading this one author, like, that's a problem. When I got back into reading, I was reading Cassandra Clare. I was reading only Cassandra Clare. I mean, she had a huge backlist, and I was absolutely eating it up. It was everything I had ever wanted in a story. And I just kept reading and reading it, and then I eventually pretty much caught up. And then I was like, okay, well, now what? And then I read other books. Of course, we have 3 copies of Swordcatcher back here due to several reasons. But, I still enjoy Cassandra Clare. I still like Cassandra Clare. I can listen and sit to all the criticisms of Cassandra Clare, all the issues, all the problems. I didn't know any of that. I just knew I wanted to pick up a book and read it. And now I am just like enamored in book discourse. And I love that for me. So I am certainly not going to sit up on my high horse and tell anyone that they should or shouldn't read any author for any reason. I have certain authors that are pretty apparent to me from this video that you can tell I'm not bringing up on purpose. Like, they are just, like, there's just certain authors I don't want to platform in any capacity. Like, I just don't. So there are several of these books I've already read. So I will be editing this video, creating a playlist, and focusing on reading these books. Also, I think it'll be valuable for people who do come to my channel, because these books are so popular, having my opinions out there. You could just go to the playlist. If there's any book that you've read and you want to know what I think of it, there you go. And then you can kind of align yourself with what you do or don't agree with in my review. I hopefully plan to make fairly detailed reviews and go into why I did and didn't like them, because I think that is the most valuable review any reviewer can make. I'm curious, how many of these have I already read? So I have already read 57, so I only have 150 books left. A little bit less than that, actually. So I think I will probably start reviewing based off of how good my memory is of said book, and then be posting it from there. I can't promise any sort of like a schedule or any sort of timeline of when reviews will be coming out, but I am hoping to get a good chunk of videos like filmed this week, and hopefully be uploading them relatively within a month or so. That would be 57 videos. I'm not sure. That will obviously probably be, I would love to do like 2 a week, ideally, but yes. So I would love to know your thoughts on any of the books that have million ratings. I don't know if I'm going to link the spreadsheet, but anybody can just go to Goodreads. There's like a whole, actually, no, that's what I'll do. There's a link that I was using that you can, there's a 1 million ratings link to the website for Goodreads. So I will leave that down below. And obviously, if I read the books, if you're on my Goodreads, you can see, if you click on that link, you'll be on your own Goodreads. You know, you won't be on my Goodreads, but maybe I could start my own list. I don't know. I might do something like that. I will leave something in the description down below to the effect of what all these books are. And there you go. I'm trying to get more into TikTok, so I'm gonna leave my Instagram, Goodreads, and TikTok in the description down below for you to check out if you'd like. Otherwise, have a great day.